On October 12, 2025, at Taylor Swift's bachelorette party, Selena Gomez asked her the one thing every bride secretly considers but never speaks out. The hush that ensued was deafening. Taylor Swift, who had made a name for herself by transforming vulnerability into art, was sobbing uncontrollably that she was unable to talk, and Gigi Hadid stopped breathing. What took place at 12:47 a.m. in that villa in Beverly Hills? And Selena's phone call 3 hours later while Taylor was asleep had the potential to either rescue a wedding or permanently ruin a friendship. And only 3 people will be aware of how close that wedding was to never happening at all when Taylor Swift goes down the aisle on April 26, 2026, 6 months from now. You need to know how meticulously Taylor Swift arranged what was meant to be the most private celebration of her engagement to Travis Kelce. So let me transport you back to October 12, 2025, 3 weeks ago. This was not going to be one of those enormous celebrity bachelorette parties in Miami or Vegas with 20 bridesmaids and 5-minute Instagram stories. Taylor had made it clear to her closest friends that she wanted something modest, genuine, and reminiscent of the life she had created before anybody knew who she was. Thus, at 8 p.m. on that Saturday, just 3 women met at a secluded villa in the Beverly Hills that Taylor had hired through a reliable source who promised there would be no interruptions, leaks, or cameras. Only Gigi Hadid, Selena Gomez, and Taylor Swift. Together, these 3 ladies had experienced highs and lows in their careers, as well as breakups and makeups, honoring what ought to have been Taylor's greatest moment. Only those who are genuinely fortunate can appreciate the subtle beauty of the villa. White walls and floor-to-ceiling windows with views of Los Angeles' sparkling lights. Taylor had arranged a spread of her favorite dishes with the help of a small catering business. Travis knew that white and pink roses were Taylor's favorite flowers, so the decor was modest yet gorgeous, with bottles of champagne chilling in ice buckets. Gigi had arrived shortly after, bringing a gift bag full of absurd bachelorette party games that she'd found on Amazon. Selena had arrived at 7:45 p.m., still glowing from her own wedding to Benny Blanco, just 1 month earlier in September 2025, and had given Taylor a tight hug while whispering, "I'm so happy for you, Tay, you deserve this." The kind that would make them all laugh till they started crying, complete with uncomfortable questions and truth or dare cards. Everything was flawless for the first several hours. They drank champagne and ate. They reminisced about the years they had spent growing up together in the spotlight while perusing old pictures on their phones. C shared anecdotes regarding her personal relationship struggles. Taylor was genuinely joyful, smiling at the appropriate times and raising a glass to friendship, love, and the future, while Selena shared humorous highlights from her recent wedding. However, Selena had known Taylor for more than 15 years, and she was as adept at deciphering her best friend's subtleties as a translator is at deciphering ancient languages. As the evening went on, Selena noticed something in Taylor's eyes, a hint of nervousness behind the champagne-induced brightness that caused her to pay closer attention. It was rare for Taylor to complete her 5th glass of champagne by 11 p.m., because she usually kept her drinking under control and was constantly mindful that one incorrect picture may appear on TMZ. Around midnight, Gigi began yawning, exhausted from a long week of fashion shows and photo shoots. She apologized, but said she needed to lie down for a few minutes. Taylor had instantly, almost desperately, said yes when Gigi asked if she wanted another glass, and Gigi had looked at Selena with a look that said, "Are you seeing this too?" Finding a guest bedroom, she lay down fully clothed on the bed and promised to get back up in 20 minutes. But after 20 minutes, I fell asleep deeply. Suddenly, it was just Taylor and Selena on the terrace, sitting in cozy lounge chairs with the city below them glistening like a carpet of stars, a half-empty bottle of champagne between them, and the kind of silence that only exists between people who have known each other long enough to not always need to say anything. Selena waited, allowing Taylor to express herself as she saw fit. However, she didn't say anything until after 5 minutes of stillness. "Are you truly happy, Tay?" Selena noticed that her closest friend's eyes were glossy with unshed tears when Taylor turned to face her in the dim light from the villa. Taylor answered, "Of course I'm happy." But the word happy cracked in her voice, revealing her identity. She stopped before whispering, "Travis is amazing. The wedding plans are beautiful. Everything is perfect. Too ideal." Selena extended her arm to grasp Taylor's hand. She added softly, "You know, I just got married a month ago. I also have something to share with you that I haven't shared with anyone, not even Benny. I was terrified every morning of the first week following our wedding. Not because I wasn't in love with him. I do. Yet I was unable to breathe because the truth of eternity felt so vast, everlasting, and terrible." Taylor's head snapped around to look at Selena. "You were afraid," she said. "You appeared so assured and at ease." Selena chuckled, but it wasn't a joyful sound. "Babe, I'm an actor. I've spent my entire life feigning composure. Yes, I was afraid, though. I still am. Marriage can be really frightening at times." Taylor's expression contorted, and all of a sudden she was crying, weeping uncontrollably, the kind of tears that originate deep within and are uncontrollable once they begin. "Sel, I'm terrified," she cried. "Everyone is so pleased and enthusiastic for me. Travis is organizing everything, and his family is already referring to me as their daughter, so I can't tell anyone that I'm so afraid. And throughout my entire life, my mother has been anticipating this day, and everyone on the planet is waiting and observing." And I simply paused, breathing heavily in between sobs. Simply put, I'm not sure if I can succeed. Selena got up from her chair and sat on the edge of Taylor's, embracing her closest friend and supporting her as she sobbed. She whispered, "What are you scared of? Marriage or Travis?" Pulling back, Taylor used the back of her hand to wipe her eyes. "Not Travis," she firmly stated. "Travis is flawless. I've never met a better man than him. Sometimes my love for him is so intense that it hurts my body." She inhaled tremblingly. "Marriage, the institution, eternity, and becoming a parent all terrify me." And there it was. For months, Taylor Swift had been carrying this reality around like a stone in her chest. Selena was aware of Taylor's parents' divorce and how much it had impacted her as a child. She also knew that Taylor had witnessed her parents go from being intensely in love to hardly communicating with one another. And she had internalized the lesson that love is fleeting, promises are broken, and the idea that eternity is a lie people tell themselves. "Every single relationship I've ever had has ended," Taylor added, her voice almost audible above a whisper. "And I turned my sadness into art by writing songs about it and earning millions of dollars. However, Sel, I'm afraid that this time when it's over, Travis will see that I'm not worth sticking for. There will be more than simply a breakup. There will be a divorce. If we have children, it will involve attorneys, custody agreements, and dividing up a life we created together. And I'm not sure if I'll be able to handle that." Selena understood, and she could feel tears welling up in her own eyes. God, she had such a thorough understanding. She questioned, "Does Travis know you feel this way?" Taylor gave a headshake. "No, how can I tell him? He's so excited, Sel. He talks about our future like it's this guaranteed thing. Like we're gonna be together forever and have babies and grow old together. And he has so much faith in us. I can't tell him I'm having doubts. It would break his heart. But here's where everything started to go wrong. And this is the part that Selena will regret for the rest of her life. In that moment, sitting on that terrace with her best friend sobbing in her arms, Selena made a decision that seemed right in the moment, but would turn out to be a massive betrayal of trust. She thought Taylor is too scared to tell Travis the truth. But if she doesn't, this wedding is going to happen, and their marriage is going to be built on a foundation of her unspoken fears. Someone needs to tell Travis so he can fix this before it's too late. It was the kind of logic that sounds reasonable at 1 a.m., after too much champagne and too many emotions. The kind of logic that ignores the fundamental fact that some conversations need to happen between the two people getting married, not through a well-meaning intermediary. Taylor eventually cried herself out and fell asleep around 3 a.m., curled up on the couch with a blanket Selena had draped over her. Shigi was still passed out in the guest room, and Selena, sitting alone on the terrace with her phone in her hand, made the worst decision of her friendship with Taylor Swift. Now, before I tell you what happened next, I want to pause here and ask you something. Have you ever made a decision that you thought was helping someone you love, but it turned out to be the exact wrong thing to do? Have you ever betrayed a confidence because you convinced yourself it was for a good reason? Drop a comment below about times when good intentions led to bad outcomes. Because what Selena did next is something a lot of us have done in different ways. And maybe by talking about it, we can understand why we make these mistakes. 3:47 a.m. on October 13th, 2022, Selena Gomez called Travis Kelce. She knew he'd be awake because Travis had mentioned in previous conversations that he was a terrible sleeper during football season. Always too wound up to turn his brain off before 5 a.m. The phone rang 3 times before Travis answered, his voice alert despite the hour. "Selena, is everything okay? Is Taylor okay?" The concern in his voice was immediate and genuine, and it almost made Selena hang up. Almost made her realize what a terrible idea this was. But she'd already started, and some part of her truly believed she was doing the right thing. So she pushed forward. "Travis, Taylor's fine. She's asleep, but I need to talk to you about something. And I need you to not tell her I called." There was a pause on the other end of the line, and Selena could practically hear Travis's brain working, trying to figure out what could possibly warrant a call at 3:47 in the morning. "Okay," he said slowly. "What's going on?" Selena took a deep breath and told him everything. Taylor's fears about marriage, her terror of divorce, her doubts about whether she could survive if their relationship ended, her panic about the weight of everyone's expectations, her inability to tell Travis any of this because she was afraid of hurting him. She laid it all out. Every vulnerable word Taylor had shared, every tear she'd cried, every fear she'd confessed. And when Selena finished talking, the silence on the other end of the phone was so complete that for a moment she thought Travis had hung up. "Travis," she said tentatively, "are you there?" When he finally spoke, his voice was completely different, cold in a way Selena had never heard from the usually warm and jovial Travis Kelce. "Let me make sure I understand this correctly," he said, each word measured and controlled. "Taylor told you, her best friend, her deepest fears about our relationship and our upcoming marriage in what she thought was a private, confidential conversation. And your response to that trust is to call me at 3:47 in the morning and tell me everything she said." Selena felt her stomach drop. "I thought you should know," she murmured. "I thought if you knew, you could help her. You could talk to her and make her feel better about everything." Travis laughed bitterly. "You want to know what would have been beneficial, Selena? Telling Taylor that she has to talk to me, urging her to be honest with me, and perhaps even volunteering to assist her if she wanted to have that talk. Going behind her back and disclosing her personal ideas to me without her permission is not helpful." Selena was struck by the remarks as if they were physical blows, because she became acutely aware that he was correct. In the worst way imaginable, she had betrayed Taylor's confidence. She had convinced herself that it was for Taylor's benefit. "I was just trying to help," she murmured, detesting the pitiful tone of her voice. Travis's tone softened a little as he said, "I know. Selena, this is between me and Taylor, but I really appreciate that you are concerned about us both. We must have this discussion on our own, not via you." He paused, then added, "I'm going to call her tomorrow. Today, actually, and we're going to talk, really talk. And I'm going to have to tell her that you called me because I'm not going to start our marriage by keeping secrets about how I found out about her fears." Selena felt tears running down her face. "She's going to hate me," she whispered. "Maybe," Travis said honestly, "but that's a consequence of your choice. You meant well, but you crossed a line and that has costs." After they hung up, Selena sat on that terrace until the sun came up, watching the sky change from black to purple to pink to blue, and wondering how she'd managed to destroy one of the most important friendships of her life while trying to save it. At 10 a.m., when Taylor and Gigi finally woke up, Selena was still sitting there, and she looked so wrecked that Taylor immediately asked what was wrong. "Nothing," Selena lied because she couldn't bring herself to admit what she'd done. Not yet. They had breakfast together. They cleaned up the villa. They hugged goodbye and promised to do it again soon. And the entire time, Selena felt like she was going to throw up from guilt. At 2:30 that afternoon, Taylor's phone rang. It was Travis, and his first words were, "We need to talk. Could I come over?" Taylor's voice was confused when she answered. "Of course, but is everything okay?" Travis's response was careful. "I hope so, but we need to have a conversation we should have had months ago." When Travis arrived at Taylor's house 30 minutes later, he didn't waste time with small talk. He sat down across from her in her living room and said, "Selena called me last night at 3:47 a.m. and told me about your conversation at your bachelorette party about your fears regarding marriage and divorce and whether you can actually go through with our wedding." Taylor's face went from confused to shocked to absolutely white in the span of 3 seconds. What?" she whispered. Travis reached for her hands, but she pulled them away, standing up and starting to pace. "She called you? She told you what I said." "That was private, Travis. That was between me and her. How could she?" And Travis watched as Taylor cycled through shock, betrayal, anger, and then landed on something that looked like relief mixed with terror. "But here's the thing, Taylor," he said gently. "I'm not mad that she called. I'm actually glad I know because we need to talk about this. What I am mad about is that you've been carrying these fears alone instead of talking to me about them." What happened next was the most honest conversation Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce had ever had in their entire relationship. For 5 hours, they sat in Taylor's living room and laid everything out. Travis admitted that he'd known something was wrong, that he'd felt Taylor pulling away emotionally over the past few months, but hadn't known how to bring it up without sounding accusatory. Taylor confessed that she'd been having panic attacks about the wedding, that she'd been Googling how to know if you should call off your wedding at 2 a.m., that she loved him desperately, but was terrified that love wouldn't be enough. Travis told her about his own fears, about being constantly compared to her ex-boyfriends, about worrying that he wasn't smart enough or cultured enough for someone like her, about the pressure of knowing that millions of people were watching their relationship and waiting for him to screw up. They cried together. They held each other. They admitted things they'd been too scared to say out loud. And somewhere in those 5 hours, they made a decision that would change everything. They decided to postpone the wedding, not cancel it, but move it back from April 2026 to sometime in 2027, giving themselves more time to work through their fears together. They decided to start couples therapy immediately, something they should have done months ago. They decided to be more honest with each other, even when that honesty was uncomfortable or scary. And they decided that their relationship was worth fighting for, worth doing the hard work, worth being vulnerable and real, instead of trying to live up to everyone else's expectations of what a fairy tale romance should look like. But there was still the matter of Selena Gomez. 3 days after their conversation, Taylor finally worked up the courage to call Selena. The conversation was painful and honest and necessary. Taylor told Selena that what she'd done was a massive betrayal of trust, that going behind her back to tell Travis her private fears was not okay, that it wasn't Selena's place to fix Taylor's relationship. Selena apologized, cried, explained her reasoning, but didn't make excuses. She owned what she'd done and accepted that Taylor had every right to be angry. Here's the thing about real friendships. Though the kind that survive 15 years of fame and fortune and heartbreak, they can survive mistakes if both people are willing to do the work. Taylor and Selena didn't speak for a month after that phone call. It was the longest they'd gone without talking since they'd first become friends, and it hurt both of them more than they wanted to admit. But slowly, through text messages and then longer phone calls and eventually a tearful face-to-face meeting, they started rebuilding trust. Selena had to accept that she'd fundamentally violated Taylor's privacy, regardless of her intentions. Taylor had to accept that Selena's actions, while wrong, came from a place of genuine love and concern. And both of them had to figure out new boundaries for their friendship, ways to support each other, without overstepping into territories that weren't theirs to occupy. So here's what I want to know from you. Have you ever had a friend betray your trust while trying to help you? Have you ever been the person who crossed a line with good intentions? And more importantly, were you able to repair that friendship, or did it end there? Share your stories in the comments, because Taylor and Selena's experience is something so many of us go through, and maybe by talking about it, we can all learn better ways to support the people we love without trying to control their lives. As for Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce, their wedding is still planned for the future, now tentatively set for fall 2027. They're in therapy. They're working on their communication. They're building a relationship based on honesty instead of fairy tales. And you know what? That's actually more romantic than any public proposal or Instagram announcement could ever be. Because real love isn't about perfect moments. It's about two imperfect people choosing each other every single day, and doing the hard work to make it last. Selena and Benny are still married, still figuring out their own version of forever. And Selena learned a hard lesson about the difference between being supportive and being controlling, about respecting boundaries, even when you think you know better. The four of them, Taylor, Travis, Selena, and Benny, they'll all move forward into whatever the future holds, hopefully wiser and more aware of how fragile trust is and how carefully it needs to be protected. If this story made you think differently about friendship boundaries and wedding anxiety, hit that like button and subscribe for more honest stories about the messy reality behind celebrity relationships. Share this with someone who needs to hear that it's okay to have doubts. It's okay to be scared. And it's okay to take your time figuring out forever. Because sometimes the bravest thing you can do isn't walking down the aisle. It's being honest enough to say, I'm not ready yet.